we can see why the common way that people try to deal with thinking about being at risk of something bad happening, being at risk of an undesired outcome, they will try to ration away the stress or treat the stress, the anxiety, the dis-ease by using this probability rationale, trying to tell themselves, oh, well, it's quite unlikely that will happen. They'll try and gather statistics and say, well, that only happens in X amount of cases. But how often, reflect on your life right now, how often has that it probably won't happen rationale, self-soothing, actually eased your anxiety? You know, if you say to somebody, you might end up losing your loved one, but there's only a small probability of that. We actually see this in studies of framing, the way that we frame the undesired outcomes and the negative outcomes, the potential losses in situations. And I'll probably cite this study in the later weeks as we discuss decision making and rational, truly rational decision making. But we've seen that if we frame mathematically equivalent outcomes in terms of positive outcomes or negative outcomes, then we will make different decisions. For example, in this study offering a treatment, you have an 85% chance of a good outcome versus a 15% chance of a bad outcome. Then when phrased in this negative way, people will choose that treatment less often than when the mathematical equivalent is presented in the positive way. And framing is really the point of this experiment, but we can also see how presenting the outcomes that we don't want to ourselves and then just saying, well, it's unlikely to happen, isn't actually usually a reassuring way to talk to ourselves and make decisions rationally. Instead, in this week's work, I'm actually going to help you become more not only effective and rational, but actually more fearless in your decision making in uncertainty by analyzing these outcomes in themselves. Because while our brains are labeling these outcomes as unacceptable, as bad, full stop, end of story, of course, rationally, the stakes are very high and we are feeling high levels of stress with this uncertainty. If we can lower the stakes, then we can also lower the amount of fear, anxiety, stress in anticipation and in the decision-making process, which is really important because that anxiety and stress affects our decision-making process to a detriment. It affects our performance to a detriment. We'll talk about that more next week. And the reason we can do this is not because I am going to force you or convince you into positive thinking about the outcomes, but the reason that we can do this and the reason that this is a highly effective approach to uncertainty is because